Hello, I'm Brian Foster, and today I'm talking about Spiritism. And today is Sunday, March 13th, 2022. And we are going to talk about the Spiritist Review of 1858. And this is our last meeting on the Spiritist Review of 1858. Next Sunday, we'll start the Spiritist Review of 1859. Before I begin, let's have a short prayer. Dear Jesus, please help send us all good physical health and help send us good mental health as well. Help us recognize the signs and signals of how we're led by your army of spirits, your angels, our guardian angels, and all the spirits who help around us. Help us receive the inspirations and filter them by our conscience so we do what is right and what helps us on our path to purity sometime in the future. Amen. So before I begin this talking about the meaning of flowers, the widow of Malabar of India, and the beautiful weaver, may I suggest that you read the Spirits book by Allan Kardec. It's codified, I should say, by Allan Kardec, not by Allan Kardec. And you can get that PDF. Just type in Allan Kardec space PDF, and you can go to my blog site, nwspiritism.com, click his picture. It'll take you to the FEB bookstore. You can order it. I think it's only like $10 or something. But of course, you can get it, free on PDF. Also, you can get it in Amazon, or you can order it at any bookstore. They'll find the Spirits book by Allan Kardec. And on my YouTube channel, I have my playlist called The Spirits Book, where I read every chapter. Also on my blog, I have it in MP3 format and in Audible format, where you can download. It's two files. It's this pretty big file, but you can download it and you can play this like an Audible, where you can leave off and come back. You can skip to certain chapters. You can go anywhere you want. So that, for those who have those type of players, that's very convenient for you. So then if you want to get a quick overview, depends how you want to learn, you can do this one first or the Spirits book first. On my site, again, I would recommend that you download, again, a free PDF from nwspiritism.com, Spiritism 101, the Third Revelation. And that is in PDF, but you can also get it in French for free on PDF. You can also get it in Kindle for 99 cents, paperback, or in Audible format. Okay, so let's start our... There we go. Let's start what we're on. Dissertations for Beyond the Grave, the Flowers. So this is the observation usually written by Allan Kardec. This communication and the following one were obtained by Mr. F., the same one we talked about in our October issue, with respect to the obsessed and subjugated. One can see the difference regarding the nature of his communications now and those from that time. His free will completely triumphed from the obsession that victimized him, and his bad spirit no longer showed up. These two dissertations were dictated to him by Bernard Palissy. Now, Bernard Palissy, I think, was a very famous potter who now lives on Jupiter, not in this dimension, not the Jupiter you think of, kind of a gaseous ball, and no one can live there. It's in another dimension. Okay, this is from Bernard Palissy. Flowers were created in the world as symbols of beauty, purity, and hope. How come man who watches the unfolding petals every spring and the flowers fading to bear delicious fruits doesn't think that his life in the same way will wither but will eventually yield eternal fruits? What does it matter to you, the storms and torrents? These flowers will never perish, nor the most delicate work of the Creator. Have courage, then, you men that fall in the streets. Stand up as the lily does after the storm, pure and more radiant. As with the flowers, the winds shake you right and left from all sides. They knock you down and drag you over the mud. But when the sun is up again, raise your heads as the noblest and the greatest. Now that is a wonderful metaphor for really how we are. He's absolutely correct. We are spirits who are immortal. We cannot be destroyed. We're never sick. We don't die. We're all created equal. I mean, really equal. Unlike in the United States Constitution, we're all created equal. That means we're created under the law. But in the spirit world, we are created equal. We all have the same capacity and capabilities. It all depends on how you want to work on creating and ennobling and and supplementing your capabilities. And do you want to be a painter? Then practice painting all the time, right? These things, you can be whatever you want. It's unlike here on Earth, where I could never be a football player. I'm not big enough, not strong enough. I'm too fat, too slow, and uncoordinated. But in the spirit world, I can be whatever I want to. If that's what you want to work towards. So you are created equal. And the people who you feel are mentally deficient here in this world, well, they're pretty sharp, as they want to be in the spirit world. In fact, quite a few people who have problems they have these problems because they were probably too clever by half in their previous lives. They said, okay, we're gonna dial you down a little bit with being a bit too intelligent, and maybe you manipulated people and you were too good of a con man or woman, and we're gonna slow you down a little bit. And that's not to punish us, it's to educate us. We're here on this earth. Remember, the earth is consider yourself in a simulation. Consider yourself, you're going through this life, and it's just like the flower. Sometimes you radiate and sometimes you wither, but eventually the sun comes out and our spring comes along, like the tulips that pop up, and you're in good shape for a while. But then the daily toil of life puts you down too much and you're a little bit weak, but then you'll get strong again. And that's how you should look at your life. Look at your life from the 10,000-foot level as you are going through these different metamorphosis, and you're a chrysalis at one time, you're a butterfly at another time, whatever. And therefore, you're always changing, you're always migrating to something. And what you need to do is, since we have time on this world, right? And time was created by God for our physical world, I believe, I don't know this for a fact, but this is my supposition, I believe it's just to keep us moving forward. It's like a treadmill. It's like, okay, you're on a treadmill. You can never get off. You got to keep moving forward. That's what time does. It makes us older. It makes things happen. In the spirit world, there's no time. You can sit there and meditate for 10,000 years. No problem. Nothing's going to decay around you. You're not going to grow older. You don't have to worry about time. But on Earth, it's like, okay, you've started your simulation. You get 60 Earth years. And after that 60 Earth years, you're back here. That's why, go with the flow. Learn what you can learn from. Don't get too upset over the money you make, the money you lose, the friends you make, the friends you lose, all these things. The spouses you have, the spouses you lose. Everyone's learning on their own lesson. Everyone's at different levels of maturity, as we all are. So just love everybody, understand them. Keep the ones you don't like at arm's length. Try to forgive them. Don't get mad at them. Don't plot revenge at them. But you don't have to put up with them all the time. Jesus never said you have to be best friends with your enemy. He said forgive them 70 times 70. He didn't say you have to be best friends with them 70 times 70. Yet you have to keep inviting them over for dinner and then they just destroy your dining room. No, he never said that. He said forgive. And that's what we should do. Forgive everyone. They're all playing a part in the play of life. And this metaphor of a flower is an excellent one. So I'll carry on. So, love the flowers. They are the emblem of your life, and do not be ashamed to be compared to them. Have them everywhere, in your gardens, in your house, in your temples even, as they are pleasant everywhere. They also inspire poetry and elevate the soul of whoever understands them. Wasn't that in the flowers that God had manifested all his magnificence? How would you know the sweet colors with which the Creator has brightened nature, if it were not for the flowers? Before man had searched the guts of earth to find the ruby and topaz, he had the flowers before him, and the infinite variety of shades already consoled him from the monotony of earth's surface. So love the flowers then. You'll be purer and kinder. you will eventually become like children, but you will all be the beloved children of God, and your soul, simple and spotless, will be accessible to all his love, to all his joy, with which he will warm up your hearts. Now, also remember, flowers in the spirit world never decay. In fact, you have a flower in the spirit world. You pick that flower and you put it in a vase, let's say in your room. That flower will not decay. When you're not thinking of that flower anymore, the flower will just simply disappear. Because remember, in the spirit realm, thought is action. And therefore, when you have thought, things are manifested. And when you're not thinking of that object anymore, it will just fade away. Or the people who made the flowers said, okay, if you pick them, they last for a certain amount of time. Although there is no time. So I don't know how that happens. Somehow they have some other clock. Good question. So nothing decays, right? When you have your house in the spirit realm, or your palace or your mansion, whatever you created, could just be one room apartment, depending on what you want or what level you're at. And you leave that and you spend 80 years on earth and you go back. There's no dust. Everything's spot and beautiful, spotless. There was no maid service. That's because there's no dust. There's no decay. If you had a flower, that flower is still there. If you had greenery, that greenery is still there. If you had a apple orchard, there's still perfectly created apples on each tree. But as they say in the spirit world, you take an apple off a tree, you eat it, and another apple shows up. A perfect apple. How can that be? Because thought is action in the spirit world. The spirit world is a complex matrix in which spirits, who are very just imaginable, intricate machines that we are, we have emotions, we have feelings, we have our own deliberate, unique personality because of the millennia of trials and tribulations we go through to become perfect spirits, become mature spirits. It's beyond your imagination. And what you have to do, like by looking at a flower, you look at a flower and you don't consider that to be a unique personality. You just consider that to be an object of beauty. But then when you look at us and you think of us as avatars in some sort of simulation, we are also an object of beauty, and we're also an object of unimaginable complexity. Okay, I'll carry on. Flowers wish to be treated by enlightened hands. Intelligence is necessary for their prosperity. You have been doing wrong on earth since long ago by leaving such a care to unskillful hands and mutilated them when trying to embellish them. There is nothing sadder than those round or pointed trees in some of your gardens, pyramids of greenery that look more like a haystack. Let nature flourish in 1,000 different ways. That is the grace. Happy is the one that can appreciate the beauty of a simple branch that swings, spreadalizing the fertilizing dust. Happy is the one who sees the infinity of grace in their brilliant colors, finesse, shades, nuances that escape and seek one another, flee and reunite. Blessed is the one who can understand the beauty of the graded shades, from the dark root that marries earth to the blending colors of the scarlet tulips and poppies. Why such harsh and weird names? Surely all this, and notice the leaves that sprout from one another, like endless generations, until they're a complete blossom under the celestial dome. Doesn't it seem like the flowers germinate from earth to launch themselves towards other worlds? Doesn't it seem like many times they painfully lower their heads for being incapable of rising even further? Do we think that for their beauty the flowers are closer to God? Thus, imitate them and become greater and more beautiful. And also, by the way, another aside is we are told that flowers and animals, everything has originated from a model in the spirit world. So there are mutations, let's say, there are alterations, modifications of plants, of flowers, but the basic design were usually copied from somewhere in the spirit world, and then they were trying to be reproduced here. And of course, there was alterations and mutations because they had to grow in the unique oxygen levels and soil levels and gravity levels of the Earth. And that's why, of course, there's such variety of life. Okay. Your way of learning botany is defective. It is not enough to know the name of a plant. I shall call you again when you have time to work on a book of that kind. I defer to a later time the lessons I want to give you today. They will be most useful when we have the opportunity to apply them. Then we'll talk about the kinds of culture, the places that suit them, and the arrangement of the buildings for ventilation and sanitary conditions of the dwellings. I like that. If you publish this, remove the last paragraphs so they're not seen as propaganda. See how interesting it is. Okay, now I want to go to page 289. I didn't think this one was pretty a long time ago. Okay, Spirits Poetry. Nope, not there yet. There we go. Family Conversations. A Whittle of Malabar. Let me get a drink for you. Okay, I'll carry on. This is why the Spirits Review is so interesting, because they just go from one article to the next, all an array of subjects. Okay, we wanted to interrogate one of those women from India, subjected to the tradition of being burnt over the cadaver of their husbands. As we did not know any of them, we asked St. Louis to send one to us who would be capable of satisfactorily responding to our questions. Now, remember, this is in 1858. Now, actually, this still happened until recently, and recently maybe 50 years or so in India. But this has been a horrible practice in India. So this is interesting. I want to find out. He said that he would gladly do, and so of course. In a society session on November 2nd, 1858, Mr. Adrian, clairvoyant medium, saw one woman that wanted to speak, giving us the following description of her. Large black eyes with a yellow sclerotic round face, salient and fat faces, saffron brunette skin, long eyelashes, black arched supercilious, a bit large nose, slightly flattened, large and central mouth, uniform, beautiful and large teeth, long wavy black hair, abundant. She had a fat body, big and stubby, silken outfit that left the breast somewhat uncovered. She was wearing bracelet on arms and legs. She's probably wearing what she was burned in. Do you remember more or less, this is the question, do you remember more or less over which time you lived in India and where you were set on fire together with your husband's body? She shook her head as she did not remember. St. Louis answered, indicating that was about 100 years ago. So even at 1858, it was sometimes in the 1750s. Do you remember your name from that time? Fatima. So interesting, she doesn't remember much, and she's been in the spirit world for 100 years. What was your religion? Muslim. But doesn't Islam prohibit such sacrifices? The answer is, I was born Muslim, but my husband's religion was Brahmanism, which is the highest caste in India. I had to comply with the customs of religion of the region where I live. Women do not belong to themselves, because this was in the 18th century. How old were you when you were killed? I believe I was about 20 years old. Oh, that's so young. Mr. Adrian explained that he seemed to be between 28 and 30 years old, but mentioned that women age faster in that country and also age faster during that time. There wasn't what we have today. Did you sacrifice voluntarily? I prefer to have married someone else. Think about it, and you'll see that all of us think like that. I followed the customs, but the bottom line is I would rather not have done it. Absolutely. I waited for another husband for several days, but nobody showed up. Then I obeyed the law. Okay, so I didn't know this, but I guess the law is if another husband came by, then I guess you did not have to be burned with your husband. For that must have been religious customs during her time. Number 7, what sentiment may establish such a law? A superstitious idea. They think that by burning us to death, they please the divinity, that we redeem the faults of the one we lost, and by doing so, we will help him to be happy in the other world. Was your husband happy with your sacrifice? The answer is, I have never tried to see my husband again. So for 100 years, and he's been in the spirit world. If she wanted to, she could find him. Yeah, not interested. Who can blame her? Number 9, are there women that do such a sacrifice in good faith? And the answer is there are a few, 1 in 1,000. The reality is they would not wish to do it. Absolutely. What happened to you at the time that your corporeal life was extinguished? Perturbation. I felt that all went dark, and then I don't know what happened. My ideas were confused for a long time after that. I went everywhere. However, I could not see properly. Still, I did not feel completely lucid. I'll have to go through many incarnations to elevate myself, but I will no longer burn. I don't see the need to burn people, to throw oneself into the flames as to improve, particularly for faults that were not ours. Besides, I was never pleased with that. As a matter of fact, I never wanted to know about it. Would you kindly pray a little bit for me? I believe that there is nothing like the prayer to give us courage to withstand the trials that are sent to us. Ah, if I had faith. So here's a lady that was burned on a funeral pyre with her husband. She's in the spirit world. She doesn't feel any pain. She's still most probably on the lower zone. She hasn't lifted herself up to go into heaven. So that's why she's not very lucid. It dulls the mind. But she's just like, oh, yeah, I don't think I want to do that again. So it's more like, okay, I did that. I'm not have to go another. I know I'm going to have to go through another life. It's like, well, I didn't like that ride at Disneyland, but the line's too long for the other rides. I'll ride this one again. It's at least a little bit interesting. That's how some people look at their lives. And see how she looked at her life on Earth? She knew it was just a temporary thing. But she knew the temporary thing had a purpose. And that the purpose is to improve. That's why we're on Earth, to improve. Nothing else is important. You're not on Earth to buy a 200-foot yacht. You're not on Earth to build a company that is worth millions and to give it to your sons and daughters. God will supply them to what they need or don't need. You're on Earth to improve spiritually, I should say. Number 11, you asked us to pray for you, but we are Christians. How could our prayers be pleasant to you? There is only one God to all men. Amen to that. Observation. The same woman was seen among the spirits present in several of the following sessions. She said that she came to be instructed. It seems that she was touched by the interest that we demonstrated towards her, and she followed us on several other meetings and even in the streets. So this is an observation I've seen myself. There are spirits that won't interact with mediums, and even in Spiritist meetings, when someone could be talking, there will be spirits in the audience listening. And you may ask yourself, why don't they talk? There's higher spirits all around them. All they have to do is ask, and someone's going to give them answers. But they don't really know that yet. And they really only want to learn by seeing what humans, so they actually consider themselves physical humans, but in this state they don't really understand. Where they don't understand is that that's the state, that's their conscious state. Being human is a temporary state. But that doesn't occur to them at that point. And therefore, they like to see the interactions. And they want to see what other people, meaning physical incarnations, think and talk about. And then she can listen to them with a better focus, a better state of mind, and she'll learn. And that's why during Spiritist meetings, the spirits who are maybe in charge of the center, the Spiritist center, will bring spirits in. There'll be physical humans there. But they'll bring spirits in. In fact, Chico Xavier, when he first started out, and he had a meeting, and he would talk about Spiritism. And he talked to, he said, okay, I'm going to have a spirit meeting here. It's going to be at 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock every Wednesday, let's say. And there may be one person in the audience. And he'd do this night after night, for months and months. And he said, no one ever comes to my meeting. What am I doing here? And then Emmanuel, his spirit guardian, said, okay, next meeting, let's open your eyes and see who really is there. So the next meeting, During the meeting, as he was talking, Emmanuel said, okay, now open your eyes to see the spirits that are there. And the room was full of spirits. Not high spirits. They're low spirits trapped on the earth. Maybe coming up from the lower, from different areas in the lower zone. There were spirits, incarnated spirits, not advanced, not in heaven. They were interested in what he was talking about. They wanted to hear his point of view. They wanted to hear how they could get out of their situation. When I first did my Spiritist Center in Bainbridge, I don't have that anymore because we moved. But I can't tell you how many times I just my wife and I are in the room. Now my wife knew there were spirits there; she could feel the spirits. But here we were, just in the living room of our house, and I was, having a Spiritist meeting. She goes, I said, is this important I do that? Yeah. She goes, yeah, they're spirits. They're listening to you. They bring them in. And so I talked. I talked to the air, but it wasn't the air. It was errant spirits that wanted some wisdom to understand where they were and how they could be helped. Okay. Let's do our last one from this book, and then we're done with the whole of 1858. And this is Conversations from Beyond the Grave, The Beautiful Weaver. News. Louisa Charlie, known as LeBay, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, also known as the Beautiful Weaver, was born in Lyon during the time of Francis I. She was a perfect beauty, a finely educated lady. She knew Latin, Greek, spoke Spanish and Italian, and even wrote poetry in those languages that would not discredit the national writers. She was familiar with all kinds of physical exercises, capable of horse riding, gymnasts, and the handling of weapons. She had a very energetic character, distinguishing, together with her father, among the bravest fighters in 1542. So where are we? We're almost 520-something years ago. During the siege of Perpignan, I'm not pronouncing that right either, where she fought disguised under the cover name Captain Lois. Failed the siege, she renounced her career and returned with her weapons to Lyon with her father. She married a rich rope manufacturer by the name of Inhabit and soon became only known as the Beautiful Weaver, name by which she was recognized in the street where she lived and where her husband's factory was located. She organized cultural gatherings in her house. This is 1542, for which she invited the most brilliant minds of the province. She left a collection of poetry. Her reputation as a woman and her beauty attracted to her the masculine elite, exciting the envy of the Lyonnese ladies who tried to revenge with calumny, with bad gossip. Her conduct, however, was always irreproachable. Again, that's something to rise above. Stop malicious gossip. That's one of the best. And tell you, when I did that, I started feeling better. I started feeling better about myself. And I got a reputation at work as this guy doesn't gossip. So people told me all sorts of things. And not only did I not gossip, I tried to be positive about everybody. And that is part of rewiring your brain to become a better person. Just start with the little things. And I tell you, it's hard not to do malicious gossip, because what's the most important time to do during breaks or any time to do during work is talk about the other guy who is a complete idiot. And of course, you do everything correct. You and your friends know everything about the company and what to do. Why those other people, men and women, are all dummies, right? Of course, that's not true, but that's how people talk. And to try to exit that. That's a good first step. Okay, let me carry on. She was evoked in one of the sessions of the Parisian Society of Spiritual Studies on October 26, 1858. So about 300 years later, when we were told she could not come yet for reasons that were not explained. On November 19th, she attended our appeal, and here's the description given to us by Mr. Adrian, our clairvoyant medium. Now, if it's been 300 years since she had died on that life, she's probably lived other lives. But it depends on their level. The higher the spirit, the longer between, not always, there's always exceptions, the longer between incarnations, because you have less to learn. And usually the higher you are, you don't go to learn, And to work on things, you go to fulfill missions. You go to help society advance or help other people on different things. So it's possible she had incarnated since that time. Okay, this is what the clairvoyant said. Oval head, pale matte skin, lively, beautiful black eyes, arched eyebrows, developed and intelligent forehead, fine Greek nose, medium mouth, lips indicating goodness of spirits, beautiful, small, and good-looking teeth, extremely black hair, slightly curled, noble pose of head, slender, handsome appearance, wearing white outfit. It's probably a white tunic. Observation. There is no doubt that nothing proves that such a picture, like the preceding one, is not just a result of the medium's imagination, since we cannot control it. But when he does the same with such an amount of precise details with respect to contemporary people they'd never seen, recognized by their relatives and friends, we can no longer doubt his authenticity. Therefore, one can conclude that if he unarguably sees some of those, he can also see the others. Another circumstance worth mentioning is that he sees the same spirit over months, and the portrait does not change. It would be necessary to assume that he has a phenomenal memory, such that he would be able to remember the minor details of every spirit that he has already described. This would amount to a number in the hundreds by now. And also, as you know, even in this modern times, I have met mediums who can see spirits. Okay, number one, evocation. I am here. Number two, could you kindly respond to some of our questions? With pleasure, she said. Do you remember the time that you were known as the beautiful weaver? Yes. Number four, when you have taken the virile qualities that made you embrace your career with the weapons that are, according to the natural laws, an attribute of men. And the answer, it was pleasing to my spirit that was eager of great things. Later, it turned to another level of more serious ideas. The ideas that we bring since birth that do certainly come from previous existences. These are a reflection, however greatly modified by our own resolutions or by God's will. Number five, why haven't you persisted on those military tastes? How come they so promptly gave rise to the feminine pleasures? And the answer, I saw things that I wish you don't ever see. And this is where people say, war and think about if war is bad in the 1500s, think how it is now with the explosive. Number six, I have never seen war, to let you know that. Not in this life. I've known for a fact I've seen war in previous lives. Number six, you were a contemporary of Francis I and Charles V. Could you give us your opinion about those men and establish a parallel? The answer is, I don't wish to judge. They had imperfections that you know. Their virtues were less plentiful. A few traces of generosity, and that is it. Leave all that behind because their hearts could still bleed. They suffer a lot. And this shows you how you should answer about someone you don't like. I don't wish to judge. They had imperfections. They could have been better, but kind of forget that. They're going to get better over time. That is showing you what you should say if someone asks your opinion on someone you don't like. Now, if you're in a job and you believe they're incompetent and you need someone to do their job, you have to say, look, and I've done this before. I say, look, they're a great person, they're a nice person, but this slot you have them in doesn't fit them. It's just not capable to do what you're asking them to do. This is not their fault. They either need no training or some other position. Number seven, what would have been the source of such privileged intelligence that made you capable of receiving an education superior to women of your time? The answer is painful existences and God's will. So, she's had some tough past lives, but it made her more intellectually aggressive and astute. 8, you then had accomplished the previous progress. The answer is it could not have been different, of course. Number 9, has that instruction made you evolve as a spirit? Yes. Again, that's all of us. Now, what they do say is that some people, the Spiritists call park. They park, meaning that you go life after life and you don't really improve. And I think I've done that. right? Because I've been told in mediums meeting that I've stolen money from people. I've been in positions of power, and I cared more about myself than those under my control. And I did that multiple times. And what they did is that you failed again and again. You know, when you hear that from spirits, it's like, it's not like you're hearing it from some person that doesn't like you, right? You're hearing that from a person that's trying to be nice, but telling you the truth. It's not an easy thing to take, but I accept it. Try to be better now. Okay, number 10. It seems that you were happy on earth. Are you still happy now? What a question, she says. However much one may be happy on earth, heaven's happiness is something very different. What treasures and riches you shall know, you shall one day know. Those riches that you do not even suspect or completely ignore. So what she's saying is, there's nothing comparable to happiness and contentment in heaven. Earth, something you have to go through. There'll be periods where you think you're happy, but you're not on earth to be happy. You're not on, as I said before, you're not on earth to be successful in everything you do. In fact, sometimes the failures and the trials and tribulations and the pain you go through on earth is the best thing that could happen to you. Just like your kid who has to learn a lesson sometimes. Hopefully the lesson doesn't hurt them, doesn't bother them too much, but they learn that lesson. And, and you think, oh, thank heavens they learned that lesson without getting in too much trouble. That's hopefully what happens with us. Of course, you can't get in too much trouble because you're immortal. And if you die, your body's gone. You'll get another body next time you incarnate. Number 11. What do you understand by heaven? Heaven to me is represented by the other worlds. Number 12. What world do you inhabit now? I inhabit a world unknown to you, but I'm not much bonded to it. Matter does not attach us much there. So she is probably on a superior world, and of course, then you're more ethereal. So as you go to higher and higher worlds, you're less dense. Like here on Earth, we are very dense. We have mostly matter and not much energy. And of course, when you go into a spirit world, if you're in the lower zone, you have higher ratio of energy to matter than you do on the physical world. But as you go higher and higher in the levels of heaven, your ratio even gets higher of energy to matter. They ask, is it Jupiter? And she goes, Jupiter is a happy world, but do you think that among all the worlds, it is the only one that is favored by God? They are as plentiful as a grain of sand at the beach. Now, again, she's telling them, why are you Earth-centric? We are Earth-centric, and we're also physical life-centric. We think the physical life, that's a be-all and end-all. Anyone else who's not an incarnated human, those poor people. And, we see these things on other spirits and movies. Oh, they can't be like us, right? We see these AI robots. And, the poor robot doesn't have a soul. Well, I got news for you. We're AI. We're just extremely complex, advanced, beyond your imagination AI. We are a logical encapsulation of a personality, a very interesting personality. Everybody's unique. And there are planets on the primitive level. That's where we were before. And on the level of atonement, planet of atonement is a planet you are on where you have to pay for your past wrongs. So your character and personality becomes improved, meaning you rip out your primitive emotions, hate, envy, and replace them with love and fraternity and charity. But if you even look at the physical world, there are trillions of planets, billions and trillions of galaxies, and trillions and billions of planets within each galaxy. And then how many planets, and then there's multiple dimensions, how many I do not know. So how many planets where spirits live? Spirits live everywhere in the physical and spiritual universes and different dimensions. So who knows where you go to? And if you live a good life here, you don't have to be on Earth again. You can go to another planet, and they'll take you to the planet. They'll send you to the planet that helps you best improve yourself. And of course, this is why, some people were burned at the stake and jailed because they said, well, the Earth, Copernicus, the Earth is in the center of the universe. What? That's a hard thing not to think. We think when we're little, we think our own town, our own house is the center of the universe. Get older, we just think a little bit bigger. But we're not. We're just one little outpost. And in fact, this physical universe where things look like there are billions of light years away really is nothing. Because when you're a spirit, you just think, oh, I want to go to somewhere in the Cirrus or the Capella system. And you're there. There's no speed of light. There's presence or absence. The physical distance is just there for us to think that we are more isolated than we are. And part of that isolation is to put blinders on it. So like horses, we're not distracted by other things and we concentrate on the road ahead of us. And that's what we do. We have these physical bodies so we can concentrate on the road ahead of us. And that is to allow emotions to overcome us left and right, and for us to think about what's happened to us and to come out of that, not a unhappy, revengeful, and spiteful person, but a more understanding, compassionate, and caring person. Sometimes it does the opposite. Don't let it. Don't let it do the opposite, because then you're just slowing down your progress. Don't let that horrible significant other, boyfriend or girlfriend, fiance, spouse, whatever, and they just treated you like dirt. Don't hate everyone because of that. Just say, okay, you know what? Number one, that probably happened to me because I did that to somebody else in some previous life. Now I know what it feels like. And thank you, Lord, for sending that actor in the play to show me what it felt like. And that's what you should consider them. That's just an actor with a part to play. A part was to really get you good, right? Most of us have been through that. I have. To get you really good and either take all your money or do something to you, make your life miserable for who knows how long. But now you know what it felt like. And now you know that, I'm not going to waste my time in getting revenge on people like that. I'm just going to let Christ and God will sort that out. They will create trials and tribulations for those people that did it to you. They will feel the same thing. It will all come back. Karma is real. So look at things from that point of view. Look at things from the 10,000 foot level view. Okay. Let me carry on. Number 14. Have you kept the poetic vein that you had here? The answer is I would respond for pleasure, but I'm afraid this could shock other spirits or place me below my position, which would make my answer useless, falling into the emptiness. That's interesting. Shock other spirits or place me below my position. She probably, I don't know what that could mean. I have to think about that one. Hopefully that anyone has comments. That's interesting. Number 15. Could you tell us in which class we could place you among the spirits? She wouldn't answer that. Number 16. Could St. Louis respond to that? She is here. I cannot say what she does not wish to say. Don't you see that she is among the most elevated among the spirits that you ordinarily evoke? As a matter of fact, the spirits cannot precisely define the distances that separate them. They are incomprehensible to you, but those are immense. Okay, so again, she wouldn't answer. She wouldn't answer because she's not going to brag about herself. And just like if you ever are in a medium's meeting, or if you are a medium, and a spirit says, oh, I'm so-and-so, and I've been great. I've done great things. Know right away that is a false spirit using a false name. That's a low spirit using a false name. High spirits will say, oh, I've been through bad times just like you. They're not going to talk about themselves, and they're not going to say, well, I'm on the 20th level of heaven. And of course, when I talk, I usually say levels 1 through 10. Some people say 3, some people say 7. The spirits that had communicated to the Reverend Jiva Owen said, we're going to use 10. Everyone uses different levels. And there's no boundary, right? But there are graduations and you can feel them. You'll know if you try to go up among your level, you can't really stand the amount of light that is there. And then she is at such a high level that she is mostly probably energy and very little or not at all matter. And she came down and she came and talked to these people to help them, right? Just give them an idea. And when he says the distances that separate them, they're incomprehensible to you, but those are immense. And even the spirits say they don't know how many levels of spirits there are. They don't know how many levels of heaven there are. And the spirits around the earth say, we don't understand God any more than you understand God. You're not going to get bored being alive forever. Okay, number 17. Under which form are you among them? Adrian has just described me. Why this and not another form? Finally, why in the world where you are now, you don't look like you were on earth? You evoked me as a poet. I came as a poet. See, it's like she answered her right away. Could you dictate some poems to us or any literary text? We would feel happy to have something from you. From my old writings. We don't like these tests, particularly in public. However, I will do that on another occasion. And the observation is, everyone knows that the spirits don't like to be submitted to tests. And requests of such nature always have more or less that character. That is no doubt why they almost never agree spontaneously, and when we expect the least, they sometimes give us surprising proofs that we would have uselessly requested. But almost always it is enough to ask them something in order not to obtain it, particularly if the request conceals a sentiment of curiosity. Yeah, they're not going to do that. Thus, the spirits, and particularly the elevated ones, want to demonstrate to us that they are not at our service. And also, let me say this. If you have a test and you're taking a test and you're asking a question to the teacher about the question, and we've all done this to students, and you ask this kind of roundabout way so you can kind of get a hint at the answer. The teacher say, no, you find it out. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to answer that. The same way here on earth. They're not going to tell us, okay, oh yeah, I'm going to prove God exists. I'm going to prove that you're in a simulation. Absolutely. You can take this to the judge. No. It's our job to figure that out. That's why we're on earth. Our job, as the first part was, to look at a flower and see God in that flower and see the symbolism in that flower. They're not going to give us the answers. That's not going to happen. Okay. On the very next day, through the medium that had served as their interpreter, the beautiful weaver wrote the following. I will dictate what I promise. It is not poetry that I don't wish to do. In reality, I don't remember what I did, and you would not like that. This will be prose of a modest kind. I exalted love, sweetness, and good feelings on earth. I spoke a little of what I did not know. It is no longer of love that I speak here, but of a broad, austere, and enlightened charity, a strong and constant charity that has only one example on earth. O men, consider that your happiness depends on you, as does the transformation of your world into one of the most advanced of the sky. Just eliminate hatred and hostility. Forget resentments and rage. Lose pride and vanity. That's all the primitive emotions she's telling us. Leave all that as a burden that sooner or later is necessary to abandon. Such a burden is a treasure to you on earth. I know well that it is why you have merit for abandoning it. Leaving it behind, however, is an obstacle to your happiness in heaven. So believe me, speed up your progress. True happiness is the one that comes from God, where you will find pleasures that are worth the joy it gives to the elected ones, the angels. And again, she's telling us, this is why we're on earth, to abandon primitive emotions. And as the Spirit said, and it's said in the Bible, for every sacrifice you make on earth, you are rewarded 100-fold. And she's saying the same thing. There are pleasures that you have no idea. I'll carry on. God loves men that seek progress in their paths. You can then count on his support. Don't you trust him? Don't you think it is for sure that you should not give yourself entirely and without restriction? Unfortunately, you don't want to understand, or only a few among you do understand. You prefer the present day to the next one. Your narrow vision limits your feelings, your heart, and your soul, and you suffer to move on, instead of naturally and easily walking through the good path out of your own free will. Hence, Suffering is the means employed by God to moralize you. And as spirits have said, pain is the great teacher. Sad to say that, but that's sometimes what we need. Do not avoid such a safe route, but terrible to the traveler. I shall finish by exhorting you to no longer see death as a scourge, but as the door to the real life and true happiness. So that was a wonderful thing to end at, because she told us the unvarnished truth. This is why. This is why you're here. This is what you're striving to. And there is a wonderful paradise that you cannot conceive of that is waiting for you in heaven and in other planets of higher degree. And at some time, as this planet, Earth, is becoming a planet of regeneration, and we're moving out of a planet of atonement. So if you incarnate again here on Earth, hopefully it will be well on its way to become and is a planet of atonement, well, where the errant spirits, is the lower spirits who are on Earth and giving us always bad inspirations and bad ideas, they're not here anymore. That is the apocalypse. The apocalypse is happening where you cannot see. The apocalypse is happening in the spirit world, where inferior spirits, ignorant spirits, are being sent to other worlds. And only the good spirits can stay here. So if you would like to learn more about the spirits and the spirit realm, I suggest you read my book. You can get this on my site, nwspiritism.com, and go through that. And you can buy that, of course, on Kindle, paperback, or in Audible format. And this is taking all the other 14 books that I read into my 15th book, and tells you about what is the spirit realm and the spirit universes, the physical universe and universes, what you are as a spirit, what you can attain as a spirit, and how you can improve yourself on Earth, and how you are guided by the spirit world to become a better spirit, a better person, an immortal person. So I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. Remember, next Sunday we will start the Spiritist review of 18